So here we go. These questions are from your calculator paper, and I'm going through the questions where less than 50% of the class got this question correct. Now, if you remember this Venn diagram, the middle equals the highest common factor. Yeah, all this here. Now, what's the LCM? The LCM is all the numbers multiplied together. So that would be 2 squared times 3 squared times 5. Just going to give you some extra knowledge. So the HCF here is 12. And the LCM is going to be 4 times 9. Please leave it in that form though, because that's a prime factor tree. 4 times 9 is 36, times 5 is 180. So the LCM equals 180. And as a product of prime factors, that would be the answer. Now, can you remember, how do we make these circles? Each circle is the value of all these numbers multiplied together, if you remember that. So 3 times 3 is 9, times 2, 18 times 2. So that is going to be 36. 5 times 2 is 10. 5 times 2 is 10, times another 2 is 20, times 3. So 5 times 2 times 2 times 3. So that's 60. That's what this circle is worth. So, and it's already told you it's 36, and that's the clue. And so the other number is 60. Now, does it make sense? Is the highest common factor of 60 12? Yes, it is. Is the LCM of that 180? It is. And then that's all the Venn diagrams recapped a bit. So work out 2.2 squared minus the cube root of 3. So you need to know where these are on your calculator. If you want to write that as a power on your calculator, you can write that this 5 to the third. But there's a button on your calculator, if you have a Casio, that when you have the normal square root button, imagine that's the button. Above it, you will see this symbol here. Sorry if I'm writing it underneath. And then you can use that symbol, and that's the cube root button. So all you need to do is put that in your calculator correctly. Now, this equals on your calculator 3.13002 and so forth. There's other numbers, but it's the 3 significant figures. So that's the first one, second, third. So equals 3.1323 SF. So this was on the calculator paper, so if you type that in your calculator, it should give you the answer in standard form anyway. But I'm going to do it without a calculator. So what's 4 times 9? That's 45. So we're going to get 45 times 10 to the power of 6. Remember, in standard form is between a number between 1 and 10 times a power of 10. So that's not in the power of 10. So what if I divide 45 by 10? Then what do I need to do this one? Times this by 10. So that will become 4.5 times 10 to the power of 7. And that's giving you an answer in standard form. That is complete. Evaluate this. Or is this on your non-calc? I'm not sure. You could do all of this. No, this must have been on your calculator paper because of that question here. No one will expect you to cube root 5. So remember, that's 12 divided by 4. What's 12 divided by 4? We can do this. That is 3. This is nice because we don't need to mess about with that. Now, when you divide powers, let's do this one in turn. What do? You you minus the powers, correct? You minus the powers. So that's going to become 10 to the 5 minus 7, and I think that's what caught you back out, or you all out. That becomes a plus because the minus is next to each other, so that's going to be 10 to the 12. So that's going to be 3 times 10 to the 12. Right. Maybe you forgot to put the pence in, or you forgot to put the pound sign. So that's going to be 5 parts. Excuse my drawing, it's not perfect. So how much money does Robin get? And I'm going to just do this without a calculator. So it's 5 parts, so you need to find the value of 1 part. And you guys are actually good at this, because I remember we did it in our last assessment and those of you got this right. So we've got to have how many 5s going to 18? This is pounds, so you know it goes into pence. 5s into 1 is 0, but 5s into 18 is 3. What's the remainder? And you put a 0 here, can't put a 0. So the remainder is 3, correct? Put the decimal point in. How many 5s go into 30? Well, that's 6, so that answer is 3.6. Now, it is in pounds, right? So you know that's £3.60. So each part is worth £3.60 or 360p. And you will see, so that whole bar is now worth £18. So how much money does Robin get? Well, Robin, this is B for 2, that's Barney, and Robin gets 3 parts. So all you need to do is 3 times 360, or 3 times 3.160, whatever you prefer, to get Robin's part. If you can't, well, do that, you can add it up, but £3.360, that's 7.20, that's going to be, if you're doing it in pence, that's the answer, but you have to write pence. So in pounds, you divide by 100, so that answer is £10.80. Right, this graph below shows the distance travelled by a cyclist over the course of a cycling race. The race consists of 2 parts, A and B. Write down the letter of the part of the race during which the cyclist was travelling the fastest. So, if you can see here, it's understanding a graph here. In 1 hour, how far does he travel? 20 km. What's this distance from here to here in terms of travel? You know, it says 30. Can you see between here and here, he's only travelled 10 km. And that time is still an hour, right? And this time is an hour. So the answer is clearly A here. And can you see this gradient is steeper, so that means it's faster. Right, this is Pythagoras Theorem. So this is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. C squared is the hypotenuse, and that's the longer side, so that's C. And the shorter sides, it doesn't matter how you label them. So all we need to do on a calculator is do 4 squared plus 7 squared to equal c squared. And I'm going to do this part without a calculator. So that's 16 plus 49 equals c squared. So that's 65 equals c squared. What do we need to do? Square root both sides. So what's the square root of 65? That's going to be, on your calculator you get 8.0625748, but it's the 2 decimal places, so look at this number, is it above 5? So C equals 8.06 centimetres. Right, so opposite the right angle, you can see that's the longest side, it's the hypotenuse. So we've got C here, we've got B there, but we need to be A. So the shorter side must be C squared minus b squared that equals a squared. And you should have been taught this fact, but you find that by just rearranging the equation as well. But the shorter side is just minusing the two squares, the biggest minus smallest, then square rooting. So 16 squared is 256, minus the b squared, which is 12 squared, which is minus 144, equals a squared. So you're going to get 112 equals a squared. Square root both sides. What's the square root of 112? So it says here a equals 10.5830 and some other decimals, but you just need to round that to 2 decimal places. So look at this 3 here. It's less than 5. So that's got to round to a equals 10.58 centimeters. Right. A bag contains 5 red counters and 3 red counters. Alex chooses a counter at random, recalls the colour and places it in the bag. Alex repeats this process 16 times. How many times should he expect to choose a red counter? Alex could be a girl's name as well. So picking red is 5 out of 8. That is the probability of red. So like I said, picking red is 5 out of 8, and I'm going to use the laser pointer now to explain. So we use 5 out of 8, and he's going to repeat this 16 times. So we have to multiply that by 16 to get the expected amount of red counters. So 5 times 16 is going to equal 80. And I've just turned that into a fraction there, so it's easier. And what's 8 times 1 is 8, because 16 over 1 is still 16. So 80 divided by 8 is 10, and that will be the answer to that. You guys are very good at this. You did an exam booklet on this in class, so maybe you've just forgotten. Right, so this is your multiplying brackets, single bracket skill, because I know you can do these types of questions easily. So that's going to be 7x plus 7 times 6, which is 42, equals minus 63. So what do we do to both sides is minus 42 to balance the equation and to get x on its own. So here we get 7x equals minus 105. Now, all you need to do now is divide by 7 on both sides, divide by 7, and this is on a calculator paper, so you could have just worked this out on a calculator, but, so I'm going to show you here. Come on, let's do how many 7s go into minus 105 in the bus stop method. 7 into 10 is 1. Right, we've got remainder 3. 7s into 35 is 5. So that answer must be minus 15. So x equals minus 15. Let's write that clearer. X equals minus 15. You girls can do that. Expand and simplify. Well, it's the same thing. 3 times c is 3c. We always write the number first. And what's c times 2d? We always like to write it in alphabetical order, so that's just going to be 2cd. You've just forgotten this skill. So a term-to-term sequence uses the rule add 6 then half. The first term is 62, so what's the third term? Now look at this sequence. It says term-to-term sequence uses the rule add 6 then half. So it says add 6 then half. The first term is 62, so what is the third term? So let's have a look. The first term equals 62. So it says add 6, then half. So 62 add 6 divided by 2 is 78. Oh, sorry, 68 divided by 2. So that equals 34. So that is term 2. So next we have to do 34, add 6, then half it to get term 3. So that's 40 divided by 2 equals 20. That's the third term. Quite easily done. To show you, so this answer is 9/4 as a top heavy fraction divided by 2/3. We know we'd use keep, change, flip, so that becomes 9/4 times 3/2, so that becomes 27/8. And actually you could work that out using the bus stop method into decimals. You should know that. But if you're using the calculator, you should know a quarter equals 2.25. So just do 2.25 divided by the actual exact fraction, and you can get the answer. Because I know where you all went wrong for this question. That equals 3.375. I'm going to show you that as a bus stop method, so you don't even need to use a calculator for these. But it's just, you want to save time, so you use a calculator, but make sure you know how to use it properly. So how many 8s go into 27? So 8 doesn't go into 2, but how many 8s go into 27 here? That's 3. Remember, put the decimal, put loads of zeros here. What's the remainder? 3. How many 8s into 30? Put the decimal point in. Well, that's going to be 3 again, and remainder 6. Now 8s into 60 is 7. That makes 7 times 8 makes 56, so remainder is 4. 8s into 40 is 5, and we get the same answer. So guys, what I know that went wrong is, if you type that into your calculator and write 2 1/4 like that, the calculator sees those as 2 different numbers and will automatically just multiply them to get 0.5. You can try that on your calculator and see if that happens, and that will show you where you went wrong. So either, if you're doing this on a calculator, turn that into a top heavy fraction so that mistake doesn't happen again. So like 9/4 divided by 2/3, and if you do that on your calculator, it will give you 27/8, and as a decimal it's 3.375. So don't worry you got that wrong. This is important that you remember this so you don't make this mistake in the exam. And that's perfect, right? I hope that makes sense. Now see if you can go back to the beginning of this video and answer the questions yourself, get it right, and then look at the answers afterwards, because then now that way you'll know that you've learnt something. Well done, girls.